So the first week of the clay court season proper underway, we had a little bit of change in the rankings, not too much because most of the big names took a week off after the Sunshine Double. Let's go have a look at who won last week because we had 5 tournaments over the ATP and WTA. Starting on the WTA side of things, we had Charleston, which was the biggest tournament of the week, a 500 event on the green clay. And Pegula beat Kenin in the final 6-3, 7-5 to lift another trophy. And Pegula's been sneaky good the last couple of months, and it shows in the rankings. And then over in Colombia, we had Osorio winning the title 6-3, 6-3 against Carver to lift the trophy at home on the clay and capping off a really good week. Over on the men's side of things, we had 3 250 events starting in Houston with Brooksby beating Tiafoe 6-4, 6-2. Over in Marrakesh, we had Darderi taking out Grigspor in the final 7-6, 7-6. And over in Bucharest, we had Cobolli taking out Baez 6-4, 6-4. So the Italians doing really well on the European clay. And this is all leading up to Monte Carlo, which starts next week. Okay, having a look at the players that went up in the rankings this week. Kenin, she goes up 10 spots, number 34 in the world after making the final of Charleston. Eala, she goes up another couple of spots to number 73 in the world, which is a career high for her. She won't be playing this week, but she will be playing in a few weeks, and we'll see her on the big stage again. And Cobolli, after winning his first career title, he goes up 9 spots, number 36 in the world. So really having a good time of it as well. After, I think, about like an 8-match losing streak, he then wins the title, and his ranking goes back up. Players that went down to the rankings this week. Collins, she went down 10 spots, number 32 in the world after failing to defend the points she made in Charleston last year by winning the title. Zachary, she's gone down 18 spots to 82 in the world. And Berrettini, he goes down 7 spots to number 34 in the world, also losing a lot of points this week. So some really popular names there falling down the rankings big time to start the clay court season. All right, let's have a look at the rankings for the WTA to start us off. No big changes with Sabalenka still at 1 and Swiatek at 2, but Pegula, like I mentioned at the start, has had a couple of really good months and winning a couple of titles, making some big finals. She goes up to number 3, pushing Gauff down to number 4. So Pegula really doing well. Key stays at 5 with Palini at 6, Andreeva at 7, Zhang at 8, Badosa at 9, Rybakina rounding out the top 10 for this week. And of course, this week we've got no WTA tennis, so no one will have a chance to gain any points this week because it's Billie Jean King Cup week. So a lot of players will either take the week off before they go to Stuttgart or they'll play for their countries, which isn't worth any points. So we shouldn't see any changes, but then Stuttgart comes up and of course Madrid and Rome after that. We should get some really big changes. Over to the race, the finals now. And again, no massive changes with Sabalenka at 1, Keys at 2, Andreeva at 3 and Swiatek at 4. Pegula stays in at number 5, but we did have a change on the bottom, with Anisimova going up 2 spots to number 6, pushing Towson down to number 7. Navarro goes up 2 spots to number 8. Rybakina dropped down 2 spots to number 9, and Badosa went down to number 10. So a little bit of a change there because some of the Americans, Anisimova and Navarro, played in Charleston this week and gained some points there. So again, we won't see any changes to this during the week because of the Billie Jean King Cup, but when we get to Stuttgart, and especially when we get to Madrid and Rome, we're going to see some big changes again because those are worth a lot of points. Over on the men's side of things now, and we had no change at the top with Jannik Sinner still at number 1 despite not playing for another month. Zverev stays at 2 with Alcaraz at 3 and Fritz at 4. Djokovic stays in at number 5, but Draper, he went up to number 6 because Ruud lost some points from this time last year. He drops down number 7, so Draper, a career high number 6 now without even having to play. Of course, all of these players will be playing next week in Monte Carlo except for Jannik Sinner. Tsitsipas, he stays at 8, Rublev at 9, and De Minaur at number 10. So again, we'll see some big changes probably next week because, of course, Tsitsipas and Ruud, for example, made the final of Monte Carlo and have a lot of points to defend. So really interesting to see how this looks in a week's time. Over to the race, the finals now, and again, no change because most of these big names took a week off. Sinner stays at 1 with Zverev at 2, Draper at 3, and Djokovic at 4. Alcaraz comes in number 5 with Mensik at 6. Auger-Aliassime comes in at 7 with Shelton at 8, De Minaur at 9, but we did have a change down the bottom with Fritz dropping out of the top 10 because Tommy Paul gained a couple of points and overtook him, taking out that number 10 spot. So again, no big changes, but of course next week, majority of these players are playing in Monte Carlo, 1,000 points up for grabs. Expect some changes, and more importantly, or more excitingly, I guess, there's a lot of chances that somebody could actually take Sinner down a notch after not playing. Sinner's only played 1 tournament, and he's still got more points than anybody else for the whole season. So there's a chance there that we could get a new number 1 to the race to the finals, which would be very interesting. So there it is. That is what's been going on. A lot of stuff been going on this week, but not too many big tournaments that make any big changes. And of course, not that many big names are playing this week. But next week, on the men's side of things, Monte Carlo, it's a huge 1,000 event. Everybody's playing except for Sinner and a couple of the players that played, I guess, in Houston that can't get back in time. Mensik also not playing in Monte Carlo, which is a little bit strange, but that's because his ranking wasn't high enough to get him in automatically, and it would have had to be a whole thing. And plus, he just won the biggest tournament of his life, so he probably needs a bit of a break. But let me know in the comments below. What do you think is going to happen in Monte Carlo? Is there anything that shocked you in the rankings this week? Didn't seem like too much has been going on for the main players, but down the bottom, I mean, players like Sakkari dropping so low, and obviously players like Collins, who this time last year was flying up the rankings. Unfortunately, this time losing all the points that she gained last year and really struggling. But there it is. That is what the rankings look like. Monte Carlo starts this week.